Probably the most common question that I get from real estate team leaders who are looking to grow their team and they're stuck in this middle or early phase of their team is, should I recruit to my team? And the answer is yes. That's the short answer. But because that would be way too short of a podcast, and I can't usually make decisions without context to why is yes the answer, I'm going to go ahead and go into a lot of detail in this episode. There's going to be a ton of information, a lot of lessons, including some numbers. So if you like numbers, you'll like some of the stuff we have in here. Now, if you're new to this podcast, this is specifically for team leaders, if you can't tell by the intro here, and broker owners. I'm going to be sharing my experience, good and bad, from start to finish in growing my company, Onyx Homes. If you want the closest possible look of us growing our company, you can go to onyxhomes.com/school. That's with a K. And I will see you in that community. That's where you're going to have the best look. So let's dive right into the content. So far in 5 years of running my company, I have stopped recruiting at least 5 times. And every single time has been a mistake. The biggest problem is I didn't realize it was a mistake every single time until months later. And we didn't realize it was really a mistake until there was a problem in the business that was caused mostly from not recruiting or stopping recruiting. And to make that even worse, there was several times where I didn't even know why we had stopped recruiting. So let me first explain. And I'm going to start by sharing something that I heard from a coach that talked to me. I went to him not for recruiting at all, but this was where a big part of the conversation went. So shout out to Sanit here. Is basically the question that he asked me completely shifted my mind on why I was running a team in the first place. Now, I was running a team because I like business. I like growing and all of that stuff. And what I walked out of that conversation with, the answer that I walked out with, totally shifted my mind on why recruiting was so important to my team. But anyway, he asked me if we had a Keller Williams or like a Caldwell, like the name of the brokerage doesn't matter. He asked me if we had a Keller Williams type office, think any brokerage that you know, in the market. And I said, yes, of course we do. And he said, cool. And do you think your agents are better off joining, not your agents? He said, do you think an agent is better off joining you or joining that other office? And of course, I'm like, obviously they're better off joining me. Are you crazy? And he said, okay, well, why? And I broke down. I said, we had better training. We have a clear system for them to follow. We have everything's built out for them. We pay for a ton of stuff. We help them with support. We have leads for them to do. Like, he's like, okay, cool. Like, bullet point all of these things that we're talking about. And he's like, okay, yeah, I would probably agree. Most agents would probably be better off joining your team versus joining Keller Williams. And every single day that you aren't recruiting, agents are going to go join that Keller Williams office. And again, it's nothing to do with Keller Williams. It's just everybody knows KW. And that hit me like a ton of bricks. Just because I wasn't recruiting, an agent's just going to go join some other brokerage that isn't as good as ours or team or whatever. And it's because I'm afraid to recruit. And that just hit me, is that I'm doing a disservice to those agents that otherwise would have joined our team by not recruiting. And from that moment forward, there's 2 major shifts. One was, why are we recruiting? We're not just recruiting to grow the business and grow the team. We're recruiting and we're growing because we offer a better service than what is standard out in the marketplace. That was the big unlock for me. And I experienced that firsthand when I was a brand new agent. You get 2 weeks of boot camp, they pat you on the back and they say, good luck. And it's sink or swim. And on teams, especially ours, that isn't always the case. With ours, is definitely not the case. Our goal is to make it as clear and easy as possible to be successful as an agent. So I'm doing them a disservice by not having my doors open. So that was the fundamental thing that really shifted my mindset around recruiting. Now, once my mindset shifted, I really got obsessed and focused on how do we make our company the absolute best place possible for an agent to work, especially the agent that fits our avatar. Now, do I think every single team leader should be recruiting? No. Do I think every single agent should have a team? No. I think a lot of agents start teams by accident because they think it's the next logical thing. They're a successful solo agent. They have maybe some deals that they miss out on because they don't want to drive one town over. And they say, I should just hire an agent and grow a team so that I can make money off other agents. And I think that's how most teams start. And that is, I believe very firmly, that is the worst way to run a team. Now, if you start your team like that and then you decide you want to run a business, then I think starting a team is fine. But most agents fall into this trap of just starting a team and then they don't actually treat it like a business, which we talked about, I think, in episode 2, or we've done all of 4 episodes, but it was either 2 or 3 that we talked about that. So now let's talk about, you have made your decision that you are actually going to grow a team like a business. And we did that. When I heard that, this was one of the last dominoes I needed to be like, I'm going all in. This is the business that I want to run. And I need to grow this company so that my employees work for a better company, so that my agents that are trusting our team to grow their business, so that we can offer more to them, so that they can make more money if they want to, so that they can have a better service from our team. And the only way to grow your team is to, 1, increase the productivity of the agents on your team, and 2, to add more agents to your team. There are no other ways that you can grow your company without either making your agents sell more homes or adding more agents to your team. Those are the 2 ways. So the question is, do you think it's easier to get all of your agents to double their production, or do you think it's easier to double your agent count? Now, if you're a small team, which again, most people that ask this question obviously are smaller teams, and if you have 2 to 5 agents on your team, of course it's easier to add 5 agents to your team than it is to get 5 agents to double their production. Here's the other thing that I hear often as well too, is that so many team leaders, they want their agents to double their production, but the agents might actually not want to double their production. And you getting somebody to do something that they don't want to do is a lose-lose situation. If you get into a situation where you're asking your agent to double their production and their income might go from 1 to 200,000, but if they wanted to make 200,000, they probably would put in the work to do that. And if they're making 100, it's probably because that's maybe where their comfort zone is. Now, there's agents that want to get pushed beyond that. Don't get me wrong, but definitely not all of them. Now, I was early in my career saying, I want a SEAL team. I want high producing agents. I want all of these things. And here's a few lessons. So in this SEAL team, the reason we chose, our company, Onyx Homes, the reason we chose to not continue going down that path is because one agent leaves and 20% of the revenue of the company goes away. Now, is that great for the team leader? No, of course not. But it's also not good for employees. It's also not good for the other agents on the team. And let me explain why. It's not good for the team leader because 20% of revenue, I can pretty much guarantee, maybe on a small team, the team itself isn't very profitable. And if you lose 20% of revenue from the team, you're probably losing all of the actual profit, if there's any profit from the team. And I'm saying this because most team leaders that run small teams like this are still in production. And usually the team itself is losing money while the agent, the team leader that's a rainmaker, is literally keeping the team afloat with their income. I did this for 2 years. I did this myself. I've talked to dozens and dozens and dozens of team leaders that generate millions of dollars in GCI, and their team just loses money, profitability, and their GCI is what floats the whole ship. So if one agent leaves and it's 20% of revenue, it's not great for the team leader for all the reasons we just talked about, but it's really not good for the employees either. I mean, let's say you were a W-2 employee and you were working for Apple, and if Apple lost 20% of revenue, what do you think happens tomorrow? They lay off a truckload of people. And on the flip side, if your company loses 20% of revenue, you're probably not going to be able to offer all the same stuff to the agents that are on the team. So that means your level of service overall to the agents is probably going to go down. Now, you might argue that they might get more leads and it's better for them, whatever. But long term, that's not super sustainable, because what happens when one more agent leaves? Then it's another 20% of the business that is gone. Everything just continues to compound and get worse. So let's fast forward. The first time that I stopped recruiting was in this SEAL team. and then one agent leaves and 20% of the revenue walks out the door, and you're scrambling and panicking. Now let's fast forward to the next time, or one of the next times. Let me just give you an overall different example. Is we're fast forwarding to an agent or a team of 50 to 60 agents, and same situation, maybe the top producer, maybe the second or third top producer on the team leaves, and 4% of revenue overall is gone. The reality is nothing really changes with the team. If 4% of top line revenue is lost, that doesn't materially change the business. Now, does it change some things? Maybe, maybe not. But it's definitely not it's not a decrease like if you were to lose 20% of your total revenue. Now, here's the other thing is if you are still recruiting, because this second example is a company that does recruit constantly and always, because that's the answer is always. The day that number 2 agent leaves, 4 more agents might, maybe that week 4 more agents might join, or maybe that month 4 more agents might join. That production that's re-recruited, right? That's joined, is as much as that one agent that left. So from a team leader perspective, you don't have to wake up in the middle of the night in cold sweats because your business is all of a sudden going out of business. And as an employee, you don't have to worry about your company going out of business because you have a better business as a team. Like I'm saying business, your team is a better business because it's safer. There's less risk in running your business when you have more agents. And there's just inherently more risk when you have a smaller company because 20% or one person can be a huge percentage versus on a larger team. Just by the nature of it, it's not going to be as big of a deal. Now, it's never good to lose agents, but it's part of business. Just like if I'm a listing agent and I feel like I'm a wonderful listing agent, if I lose a listing, maybe because the other agent did it for free or for cheap and they don't make any money, I'm not going to completely change my business just because one seller wanted to hire somebody cheap. Just like one agent maybe goes from a team to another company that has higher splits or whatever, and that company there's no way they make a profit. Like it just doesn't matter. And you're running your own business on the way that makes sense. So now I'm going to kind of move to the one thing from John Cheplack. I'm going to say this really quick is John Cheplack really drove this home for me. And shout out to John and Sanit from John's coaching company. I saved, I think, $5,000 by not buying John's recruiting course. I don't remember what it was called. I wish I could shout it out, but I saved $5,000 by not buying that course. And then 18 months later, I went through pretty much the story of what I just explained. And I saw it on a Black Friday sale for like $1,500 cheaper, whatever. I don't remember the numbers, but cheaper. And I was like, I'm going to buy it. And I was in a position because I hadn't recruited for the last year and a half where I was like, gosh, I don't know if I should spend this money right now, but I'm going to. And I did. And I remembered 18 months later being like, I don't know. I don't think I need to recruit. And then I watched the course, the training on recruiting on like how to recruit. And at the end of it, I think I messaged John, I texted him or emailed him. I just said, I saved $1,500 or whatever by buying this on Black Friday, but it cost me, I don't know how many hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars in revenue by not recruiting 18 months ago. So his saying is KFR for keep fucking recruiting, which I absolutely love that. Okay. The next thing I'm going to move on to is having your business grow. Because I think at the end of the day, I don't know very many team leaders that don't want their business to grow. Now, they might say they want it to grow and not act like it. They might not do the things that cause growth. But I think most people want to work for a company that grows as well too, both agents and employees, right? The agents that work for you, I'm concerned if they don't want the company to grow. And I'm concerned for you as a business owner if you don't want your company to grow. Because at the end of the day, the more the company grows, the more value it can plow back into your customers being your agents, but also the end user, the buyers and sellers. Also create a better life for your employees and for you as the business owner of your family. So if you're not looking to grow your business, you're probably on the wrong channel, platform, podcast, whatever. Because that's all I really talk about is growth moving forward. I mean, growth minded is one of our core values of our company. So don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with having a smaller business. I think this is all relative. A smaller business by growing 10% and a huge business growing by 10% is also like it's relative, right? So let me break down one of the each of the times that I've stopped recruiting and kind of what has happened. Now, the first time was in 2020, and it was literally because I feel foolish even saying this. We stopped recruiting to our team in 2020, the year we started it, because the broker wouldn't give us any more room in the office. Now, mind you, we're in an office where, I don't know, there's 200 agents, and we were literally the only 6 to 10 agents that were in the office at all. And there's probably 50 available desks and 100 available cubicles. But the broker wouldn't give us any more space. So we stopped recruiting because we didn't have space. That is incredibly painful to admit there. But 6 months later, the business plateaued. And it's because the agents that we had on the team were producing, and then they stopped producing more. We went from 0 agents to 6 agents, and the business grew until it stopped growing. And it actually, what ended up happening was we had 6 agents that were very happy, they were selling, and then life happened. Somebody moves, somebody leaves the industry, and next thing you know, the company's half the size and the company shrinks. So then we start training and recruiting again, and we grew the company. We grew the company to about, let's say 16, right? We 4x the company in a year, and go figure, the company grew. We did more than almost double the sales the very next year, which is awesome. Huge win. And then we stopped recruiting again. And the constraint this time was we did not know how to onboard people at scale, and we did not know how to train people at scale. And what happened was we stopped recruiting, company stopped growing again. We had to lay people off. It was incredibly painful. And that you probably heard about this. This is that 2021 year. If you watch the intro episode of the podcast talking about the history of Onyx Homes, our company, this is a horribly painful year. And it was that painful because for several reasons, but one of the major reasons was we stopped recruiting because we couldn't train or onboard people. Instead of fixing the training and onboarding, we just stopped recruiting so we didn't have to deal with it. Now, fast forward again, we fixed the onboarding and training. So we implemented our automated onboarding process. We implemented a standard training calendar and proven process training. And then we started recruiting again. And guess what? The company doubled in 18 months, literally doubled in revenue in 18 months. So what happens now? I don't think I touched on every single time we stopped recruiting, but that last one was the main one. And I have one more for you that's kind of a bonus. So what happened was we doubled the revenue of the company. The company itself became profitable. I was able to completely step out of production, and I could focus all of my time on growing the business and making the business better for our agents. We increased our marketing budget from $0 to 8% of top line revenue. And we hired more employees so that our agents had more support. We're hiring an in-house videographer. So all of these things are benefits to our agents. So 18 months ago when we did not recruit versus now when we do recruit, and we have recruited, our agents on our team now versus 2 years ago have a way better overall experience because the company's bigger. And that's my whole point on should you be recruiting? The answer is yes. Now, the last time, now this brings us to like present day. This is really embarrassing to admit as I'm sitting here talking about, yes, you should always be recruiting. And I know this, I know better. And about 6 months, this is like from today, 6 months ago, I lowered, so we didn't stop, but we lowered our recruiting budget by about 90%. And the theory was we were spending too much money and we could have got away with spending less. And we were right, but because I didn't set an end date on this test, 6 months later, we're looking at our pipeline and we're looking at our goals for the end of the year. I'm filming this on December 10th. And this was a couple of weeks ago. I realized, shoot, we're not going to hit our recruiting goal. And it was like a no-brainer that we were going to hit our recruiting goal at halfway point of the year. And we weren't or might not still hit our recruiting goal simply because we lowered the budget by 90% for about 6 months. maybe a little bit less than that. And here's what ended up happening. There was a this is the math part. There was a 90% decrease in budget, and we recruited about 67 percent. I'm sorry. We went from recruiting an average of 1.5 agent per week down to half of an agent per week. That is a 67% decrease. So I was right that we were spending too much on the budget, like there was some fat to trim there. But what ended up happening is I saved 90% of our budget, and we did not hit our goal, or likely to not hit our goal, by about 15 total agents. So that 90, and let me make this very, very real, is that 90% decrease in budget was about 60 grand, let's call it. So $60,000 in cost savings was the trade to not recruit what would have been, because we know our numbers like clockwork, about 15 additional agents. So $60,000, 15 agents, that math is about right. Now, based on the numbers that we know to be true on how productive our agents are and how much revenue they drive, that cost revenue for next year. Our revenue projections next year are $1.6 million less than they would have been if we would have kept the budget higher and recruited those additional 15 agents. That is how big of a mistake it is to stop recruiting. We didn't even stop, thank God. We just lowered our recruiting budget significantly by 90%, which was stupid. Probably should have done like half. And that is, I hope, the big takeaway of you have to continue recruiting. And even if you're okay with the company size, you're always going to have agents leave. So you need to at least be recruiting as many agents as leave. So if you have a 20 agent team and your 25 agent team and you're totally fine not growing the company at all, and you don't want to make the services better or whatever, you only want to make the agents produce more, that's fine. But you at least have to recruit the amount of agents that leave. So if you have 25 agents and you have super good churn, meaning like nobody leaves and 1 leaves per year or 2 leaves per year, that'd be really low, then you need to recruit 1 or 2 a year minimum. So you do always have to be recruiting. There's no excuse to not be recruiting, and nobody keeps all of their agents forever. So again, back to the question of should you continue to recruit your team? The answer is always yes. If the goal is to grow a true business, you absolutely have to be. Here's one thing that I absolutely love, and I'm going to break this down into something that we'll talk about probably in a future episode, is the theory of constraints. Now, recruiting will also highlight the weaknesses also known as your constraint. So recruiting to your team will highlight in a really painful way, or maybe very obvious way is a better word, of where your business is lacking, where the weaknesses are in your business. So for example, when we very first started recruiting, we stopped recruiting because we didn't have space. That was number one. The second time we stopped recruiting, it was because we did not have an onboarding process. So once we created an automated onboarding process, we were able to keep recruiting again. Now we had a bigger office space. We have a better onboarding process. So our agents were more successful more often, faster, because of that onboarding process. I don't know if the office space had anything to do with it. But so that was one thing. 2 things were stacked. We had our own office space. And then number 2 is that we had a better onboarding process that led to agents being more successful, more consistently, faster. That is a huge win to both the company and the agents that are joining. The next constraint that we found from recruiting was training. Now, in my example earlier, I tied those 2 together, but they were very much separate. So we stopped recruiting again because we didn't have a clear process for training all of our agents. And what happened? We implemented a clear training calendar. We implemented our proven process. Like we documented and productized how our agents are successful, which created way better training for our existing agents, which led to more production. We have better training for our onboarding agents. So they are, again, more productive, faster. They have higher conversion rates right out the gate than our agents did before we had that. And the next time we stopped recruiting which we didn't actually stop, but this is when I think I learned my lesson, was we did not stop recruiting, but we could not, even with our automated onboarding process, we couldn't onboard as many agents as we were without me having to get involved. So instead of me getting involved, we hired an office administrator, which made the onboarding process even better than it was before. So this is now 3 times better on the onboarding process, and it's making agents more successful faster. And that's a win for the company and for the agents. And if you're catching a theme here, as the company recruits, it finds a weakness, it fixed the weakness by making it better, and then the company overall wins, meaning the team leader wins, the employees win because they're working at a better company, and the agents win because they get a better service from their team. Now, the last thing that we've run into was the budget portion, which we know we have a very clear recruiting machine, if you will. And if we turn it on, it works. And we just have to make sure that we're keeping it fed, right? So like anything that grows, we have to keep generating more and more leads. So we solved that problem for onboarding. And then this most recent thing was the budget that we talked about. Now, within 30 days of hiring that assistant, the administrative assistant, we were able to double our actual onboarding. Now that, in a very, very real way, that one decision, instead of being like, oh gosh, I don't know if I want to bring on this, guess the salary range of one employee, I don't know, maybe we just stop. That decision to hire one person allowed us to bring on more agents. That is probably going to be about a $2 million increase to revenue in the next year. So within 30 days, that person had that big of an impact. And again, this is a win-win for the team, for the business owner, and for the agents. They're getting a better service. And now the constraint is we need to increase our lead flow. And we're only able to do that because we have grown the company. So from when the company was doing $2 million in revenue, and now our company is doing about $4.3 million in revenue we'll do this year, we are able to invest a significant amount of money into advertising. This is allowing us to bring in an in-house videographer. This is allowing us to run marketing campaigns with a huge budget behind them. This is allowing us to hire a marketing agency to deliver more of these opportunities and leads. All of these things are possible because we grow the company. And we grow the company by increasing our agents' productivity overall. We want our agents to sell more. And we grow the company by growing agent count. So again, all of these things are win-win-wins. Now, this is this new constraint of we needing to generate more leads for the agents is something that is also good, because this is really coming into this concept of the flywheel. If you haven't read, I'll give you a book recommendation. What is it called? The shareholder letters, the Jeff Bezos shareholder letters, or whatever it is. Google it, it'll pop up. The flywheel approach says that, for example, because we have recruited more agents lead to more revenue, right? So this is a flywheel. So more agents lead to more revenue. More revenue leads to more marketing. More marketing leads to more leads. More leads lead to more agents. And then the flywheel continues. And overall, I would add in there as well too, more revenue also leads to better service for the agent, which makes the agents more productive, which increases revenue. All of these things are a flywheel. So one thing leads onto another. Think of this like a snowball as another example as well too. They spin faster and faster and faster, and the middle is just growth of the overall company. So this is the flywheel approach. By the way, if you haven't read those share letters from Bezos, they're fantastic. So yet again, the constraint just constantly shows up, and we just keep solving that constraint as we go around the flywheel. As we keep growing the business, we're going to find one problem after the next. After we solve our lead generation problem, we're going to create another problem somewhere else. Do I know where that's at? No, but I'm not worried about it until we actually get there. One problem creates a solution, which creates another problem. So that is the end of the podcast today. Again, this is the message for all team leaders. The podcast could have been about 2 seconds long. Should you recruit to your team? The answer is yes. Unless you want your company to shrink and die, you should not recruit. If that's what you want, if you want your company to shrink and die, you should not recruit. If you want your company to stay the same or grow, which is, I hope, what you want to do, then you do need to recruit to your team. And how you recruit to your team is a whole nother conversation, but the importance of actually doing it is very important. And like I said earlier, is our goal here as our goal on Onyx Homes is to create the team that has we want to be the absolute no-brainer best place to work for agents that want to follow a proven process and put in the work required to be successful. Full-time agents, right? That is what we're looking for. So we want to be the best place to work for those agents. All right. So if you want the closest possible look inside of us running our company, join our free community. It's onyxhomes.com/school. That's with a K. Also, if you enjoyed this, do the stuff like subscribe, do whatever, depending on where you're watching this. And if you really, really enjoyed it, if you could share it with somebody else that's running a team that you feel like needed to hear this message, that'd be the most appreciated thing you could do. I make this content because I learned a lot of very painful experience lessons that I think you can learn from my mistakes and not make those mistakes with your company. I want you to grow your team faster, more profitably, and that is one more episode down of the story of building Onyx Homes from start to finish. I'll see you in the next episode.